If you've ever wondered how to get more fluidity and energy into your animated characters and scenes, then you're in the right place. Mastering the skill of producing smooth and natural looking animations is essential for animators to engage their audiences on a deeper level. In this tutorial, I will show you my methods to achieve that naturalness and energy in my rough animations. Of course, this is only a starting point for a full animated process, but I think it's an essential part because it allows you to quickly and efficiently see what works and what doesn't by using rough drawings that won't break your heart if you have to delete them. This method I'm about to show you is most effective for action shots and for shots with a lot of camera movements. For more static, story-driven shots with a lot of character acting, a more traditional pose-to-pose method is better. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see a video on that. I'll be animating in Clip Studio Paint, and I'll be using a set of auto actions that I use to speed up my workflow. If you animate in Clip Studio Paint as well, you can get those actions for free on my Ko-Fi shop. Link is in the description. So this is a little piece of animation that I made for this tutorial. I don't normally screen record, so I just had to quickly get something down while screen recording. So I just had this idea of this lady assassin or something skulking around the palace and then sort of trying not to get caught and then seeing a target and jumping on and attacking. So first things first, I have this SketchUp file with this set I built for the Wuxia animation that you saw in the intro. I just thought I'd reuse it, and I just quickly made this little sketch for a figure, and then I placed it in the scene, and you can see all this. These are all the shots I used for the other animation. So I just added a few more, and I added these because I knew I wanted her to walk there. Now normally I would also just do these in poses over the top of this, but I was a little rougher because I had an earlier attempt with like a more down angle where I rather stupidly did not put the scale figures in. And as you can see, it just looks kind of weird. It just doesn't quite look right. But that's, that was enough for me to work out what I wanted her to do, and how I wanted the little animation to go. So that's what I used. So here I am putting down the initial poses, which I also shot some reference for, because, you have to figure these things out. And here, as you can see, these are these notes of like, if you're skulking around and sort of hunched over, how do your feet move? And I noticed from the video, and because it was a little cut off, that you sort of plant your, I don't even know what you call that in English, like the back of your foot slowly and then sort of put the weight on. So maybe, if the floor might creak, you just slowly put your weight on it. So I just worked it out, and then I figured out later that I actually wanted her to go sort of more this way, just in the screen. I wanted it to go like that. So I scanned this in Clip Studio Paint in Post Scanner and applied it to this figure. It didn't come out great, but it's just enough for me to know what it would look like from a different angle. And these are shots of, I think I did not use any of these. I just came up with the others organically. But I did use this one because I kind of like that sticking the foot out and slowly approaching. So anyway, here I am getting these key poses because, as I said, I will use straight ahead to move through these poses for most of it. But you do need to know where you want to go. That's why these figures are here, and that's why I'm drawing out these key poses, which are very rough, and often I find myself, killing those. Oh, yeah, here I am. Just speed it up a little more. Scanning in that photo, and then getting sort of a weird pose where it seems like she's jumping. I try to fix it a little, but you know, it was enough to just grab an idea of the pose from. Yeah, and apparently I wasn't satisfied, so with that reference I drew almost the same exact pose. I guess I wanted to be sure. And here is the moment she stands at the edge, looking over carefully, fixing it a little bit, and going through it. And that's basically what I started working from. From here, I just started to go into what I would call semi-straight ahead. And the reason I call it semi-straight ahead is because I'm just figuring out where I want the body to go. I haven't, I'm not concerned about actual timing and in-betweens, because I like to just vary speeds. I mean, this whole idea of like an 8-frame walk or whatever, people don't, you can see it on the street. People don't walk the same speeds, and especially not when you're like sneaking around, or maybe when you're rushed, you go faster. So I just like to get the feet and the body down in a believable way with some weight on it. And of course, right now here I am heavily referencing those photos you saw earlier. Those are actually like screenshots of some webcam footage I just took of myself, and I'm sort of fleshing out the walk, just trying to get it to go naturally from one point to the other, and having all the body parts sort of, react to each other in a natural way. And this requires a lot of just quick drawing it out and fixing, just here, look, whoop, I'm fixing, just checking it to see if it feels right, which is basically, I could apply that to anything, trying it out, seeing if it feels right, fixing it if need be, moving on. So here I am planning the turn. If you just add another layer to the layer folder, because I always put all my animation layers, cells, whatever you want to call them in this instance, in folders. And if you just add another layer with like maybe a timing arc or whatever, in the last frame you're moving towards, it'll always show up in the onion skin in the next frame. It doesn't work if you start to use like the traditional breakdown and pose to pose. In that case, you might want to add it on another layer on top. But for this semi-straight ahead, as I call it, it'll always just be there, and I can roughly follow it just so I know where it is. And main issues with stuff like this, moving away from camera and in a very perspective heavy scene, I really set the camera settings to like a really wide angle in SketchUp. The main problem here, which you'll see me constantly fixing, and this is why it's really best to use rough sketches, is scale. You'll get like weird scale effects sometimes, and they'll look like giants or they'll look like small people, and it's just a lot of fixing. So just circle back for a second here. If you might be able to see, is that I have got like no timing. I'm just doing one after the other and flipping through them, not pressing play to see if it works, and then afterwards I will then start to space those out and to see if the timing's right. And I've got enough frames here so that I can sort of tell what the timing should be, and then I can fill them up with in-betweens and adjust the timing further if needed. So skipping back ahead, here I am just letting it play, and it's not the correct timing, but just fixing some things. I think that there wasn't enough weight on that leg, so I fixed that. Yeah, well, here you see it's sped up hugely, but I check it. And here I remember that like the arc of the sword wasn't quite working right, so I just needed it to sort of come down in a more natural arc like that. And so I fixed that, and I'm checking again. So after I fixed that arm, I play it back, a couple times and noticing like it's too fast. So I'm gonna start spacing out the frames here to have it, you know, be more of a natural speed of slowly sneaking. See, it's way too fast right now. It's just so working out timing. Well, if you're too, let's call them keyframes, but they're not really, you know, breakdowns. Maybe let's call them breakdowns. I have only one space in between. It's easy, just add an in between, and in between two. And I sort of purposely for this one left a lot of them with 3, but I think it still worked as a timing, although I don't have a 2 there as well. Then I'll break it down in the middle, and I'll try to, let me just draw this on. I'll try to consider timing, so I won't just time it like that and make everything seem robotic. I'll try to give a little weight somewhere so that, you know, the in-betweens will land somewhere here and here, and there's a bit of a shifting of weight, usually a priority. I just, you know, always do that because I've just noticed that nearly always, if you just start breaking down like this, it'll always look really wooden, and you might as well like not do frame by frame drawing it. You know, you might as well just be a really crappy Flash animator, you know, or a puppet animator. Of course, they can also add great timing, but if you see bad sort of floaty looking animation, it's usually down to this, that there's no consideration of the timing and the spacing. And in the drawing, of course, there needs to be weight. So, as you can see, I'm just adding in-betweens. And at this point, it's a pretty easy process for me because, you know, these are rough doodles. And I can just listen to my audiobook and kind of sort of do it on autopilot. I know in like a lot of books it says you do complete silence or at least music, but I found that if I concentrate too hard, I'll get sort of jammed up. And I always kind of compare it to driving, you know, if you're really thinking about, okay, I'm going to put my foot on the gas, I'm going to turn here and there, you start to drive really anxiously and self-consciously. And I find with drawing that it's best if I keep like part of my brain a little occupied with something else, so, you know, the muscle memory will just kick in of all the studies I've done, and I'll just draw. And then later on, you know, you can always fix, you know, I usually end up, if I do like a character design, I'll just draw it all on autopilot. Well, not autopilot, but in a flow, and then look at it later and make corrections. I find that to be the most efficient way, for me at least. It might be completely different for you. So here, adding in-betweens. That's basically the process, you know. It's this sort of straight ahead compared to more story poses, just straight ahead of like walking or jumping, and then fleshing out the timing, and by playing it many times, fixing it, and then just adding in-betweens, and that's it. That's basically my process. And so using the same workflow, I just went through the animation in the same way until I hit a wall. And I had this idea of after she ducks down at the railing and gets back up when she thinks it's safe, and she's decided to attack her target, she does a few steps back, sort of collects herself before she jumps over and goes, yeah! But when I just, you know, I thought I'd just do a walk in reverse and that should work, but of course it didn't. As you can see, it just looks like a weird dance, you know, like she's doing a shuffle dance. It just looks really weird. And this happens often when, you know, you think you've done everything, you've seen everything. Nope. You run into something that, you know, you have to look up. So I ended up, you know, just going to the window and just taking a few steps back and seeing, you know, how it would look right. And I noticed that, well, you don't raise your knee when you're stepping backwards. You put your foot out behind you and then shift your butt over it, shift your weight over it, and then pull your other foot under your butt and maybe stick it out again. because that's what walking is, you know, it's basically shifting your weight towards the foot that's already set to support it. So first foot, then butt, then other foot, you know, that's how I do it. So I fixed it and it worked and I could move on again. But then I noticed that, you know, because I was so focused on the weight and the feet, that the arm just, you know, I just drew it in the exact same pose on every frame. So that just looked weird, you know, like she's just suddenly holding her arm really stiffly for some reason, while everything else is just moving naturally. So I had to delete all of those and redo them. And whilst I was drawing them back in, I once again kept in mind to get a sort of natural arc in there. Again, it's sort of more an S shape, with like the arc of where the hand and the point of the sword is, and dipping down as sort of the body becomes more relaxed, and coming back up again as the body tenses. And so at the end I just go over the whole animation, start to finish, seeing how it plays, and adding extra frames where I think the movement is still a little too fast, especially the point where she ducked down the railing and comes back up. I just felt like she popped up a little too fast, and that didn't have sort of the tenseness of the situation. You know, you'd be scared to look up, you'd slowly move up, you know, preparing to duck back down fast again. So I'm adding frames here and there, doing some fixes. I'm just skipping around the video because otherwise this whole video will be too long. And then once I'm finally satisfied, at least for this example, I started adding some camera movement, which I always had in mind. You know, the thing was meant to be a panning, well, yeah, I think it's a panning background. And for some reason, I know I was pretty lyrical about it in a YouTube video I made a couple of years ago about the camera animation in Clip Studio Paint, but I just couldn't get it to work. It kept just going really slow and weird and choppy. So I ended up just doing it in After Effects, which was a lot easier. And then I even added a little lens effect to it to make it seem like sort of a fisheye, but in reverse. And yeah, that's about it. So before I end this video, I just want to say a huge thank you for watching this far, and quickly announce that I'll be doing more videos like this in the future. There'll be tips and tutorials and even some experiments on animation and how to create background art for your animations. I'm right now working on a 3-part series on how to sketch out your layouts in 3D in Blender using grease pencil and some other stuff, and how to then flesh them out with full light and color and everything to create a bunch of backgrounds for your different shots all in the same Blender file. So if you'd like to see that and more, please subscribe, and don't forget, if you're animating in Clip Studio Paint, to grab my free Any-Action set in the description, and have fun animating because fun is good.